The Grim Reaper of college football has come for Billy Napier at long last. We talked about it in a more breaking news fashion on Sunday night. Tonight, we're going to expand on that a little bit more. Also, going to recap the football game that was played for the last time under the stewardship of Billy Napier. First things first, Neil Shulman, Adrian Perez. You can follow me at All Kinds Weather. Follow Adrian at ADNDEL on Twitter. Also follow at Gator Diamond Pod for the stickball stuff that he does such a good job with. And you're watching the In All Kinds of Weather forecast or listening to the In All Kinds of Weather forecast if you're on Apple or Spotify. So, a lot to talk about today. We're going to expand on things. We're going to give our final thoughts. We're going to give our eulogies of the Billy Napier tenure. Before we get to any of that, though, got to shout out our sponsors. The In All Kinds of Weather forecast is proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, or even just your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors will tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. 401k Generation, building stronger futures, one generation at a time. For more information, please contact them at 866-998-5879 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. Long story short, those are the people that you want when it comes to managing your money. And if you want to cheat in the world of managing your money and just make some, you can also use Dustin Smith's model, the All Kinds of Weather forecaster model. You can get some more inside info at patreon.com/CFB forecaster, where you can get exclusive access to everything behind the forecaster model that helped Dustin just absolutely bullseye that score on Saturday night, picking Florida to win 23-21. Of course, Florida won 23-21 over Mississippi State. We're talking the full top 25 power ratings that Dustin puts together, complete 136 team rankings, and weekly game-by-game projections with model spreads, totals, win probabilities, and even more than that. And you'll get some early data drops, deeper analytics breakdowns, and even the ability to request custom simulations for your team if you're not a Florida Gator, but you just like winning money with your knowledge of college football. So if you like what we're building here, you want to support it, or you just like making money for yourself with college football, go on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CFB forecaster. Go check it out today and join the community. All right, Adrian, Florida now leads the all-time series against Mississippi State 36-19. They have won 3 in a row. The last time Mississippi State came to Gainesville, the Bulldogs did beat Florida 10-7 in an all-time ugly game. This one rivaled it. There were more points scored in this one than 10-7, but this one was similarly ugly. Florida did jump out to a 20-7 lead after Mississippi State scored first. Kamario Taylor took a keeper off the edge, and as opponents tend to do a lot these days, went right to the Florida crowd and did the Gator chomp. Little early right there, little premature chompulation, but Florida took the 27 lead, and we thought the game was over, and oh boy, was that not the case. Mississippi State comes all the way back, and they're in field goal range to win the game, just like USF was, until Blake Shapen, the quarterback, makes one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen, at least. I don't know about you, Adrian. You've seen a little more football than me, but that's one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my life, and Florida wins thanks to Mekhi Burrow holding on and stealing the game. So we talk positives first on this show. That's our rule here. Adrian, what did you see from this game that you liked besides just the fact that Florida wound up with more points?
Well, first of all, I think that they did a really good thing by kind of leaking out the Billy news throughout the week, right? Because I felt that the crowd, it was kind of like a weird game, right? Because it was like, remember we had talked about, is Strickland setting up the Gator fan base to root against the team, and how awful that is, right? But then word started to leak out during the week that this was going to be Billy's last game no matter what, although I never believed it, and I was pretty adamant about telling you that I had to see it to believe it. But word got out there, and amongst the fans at the stadium pregame and the crowds, great crowd, another sellout. It was kind of a festive mood, Neil. Everybody was in a pretty good mood. Pre-game, the news had gotten out there. It was against Mississippi State, a team that we were favored to beat. So people were anticipating a probable victory. And I think that was a good thing, right? Because if that news hadn't gotten out, and heavens forbid, Strickland had put out a statement like they did out at Florida State, go to Tallahassee these next few weeks and see how those crowds are going to be, right? Because they're pretty much done with Norvell. But it would have been ugly in the swamp, I think, this weekend if a statement like that had come out from Strickland. The dreaded vote of confidence statement.
That we got last year. That we got last year
exactly.
from him.
Exactly, like the same one that we got last year. So that not happening, the crowd was in a good mood, man. All things considered, the crowd was into the game. I thought the crowd was loud when it had to be. So I felt good about that. I mean, Gator Nation showed up again for this team. They showed up again for Billy Napier, obviously. He's been the coach here for the last 4 years. The game, Neil, it was a smorgasbord, man, of the Billy era. It had a little bit of everything, pretty much, even down to a 12-man on a special teams play. It had a bunch of timeouts that were used, so you didn't have any timeouts to use before the half. You had to use them all up during the half. And then the typical touchdown called back for a penalty. The laughable sequence there of a third and 7. He calls a quarterback draw with Lagway that goes nowhere. So then Smack has to come out to kick a field goal. They get a procedure penalty for 5, and then they get a hands to the face for 15. A chip shot of 30-something turns into a 54-yard field goal, which eventually basically becomes a game winner when you look at the final score. So just typical. The whole game, you thought at any moment Florida should be able to pull away here, right? Get up 2 or 3 scores maybe. But like we've said, man, and like we've chronicled here in the Billy Napier era in his coaching career, he's just loves one-score ball games, man. Loves those type ball games. Played them at Louisiana like we've talked about here, and that's what we ended up having. And at the end of the day, when you're in these one-score ball games, especially against teams that you have a greater talent advantage over, the margin for error is just so small. And Florida should have lost that game. A game that they pulled out at the end. Were fairly fortunate to do so. And again, that's just the Billy Napier experience. But hey, man, hats off to Jaden Bogg. He had another monster game. 150 yards on 23 carries. He had a touchdown. He had 1 touchdown called back on a holding call. That was kind of a ticky-tack call. Wasn't even needed, really. Jaden was through the hole. But, again, called back. And that was like a 50-something yard run, 40, 50-yard run. DJ, again, man, Neil, we called it in the beginning of this season, man. We called it pretty much after the first week. We immediately saw something was drastically wrong with DJ, and probably wasn't going to get better throughout the whole year. And it's not. It's going to take an off season of probably getting healthy. He's just not healthy. Something's wrong with his arm and stuff. His 2 interceptions were very bad interceptions. The first one, he had Hansen for the touchdown. Just had to look off the safety for 1 split second. Never even looked the other way. Eyed down Hansen the whole time. I watched the replay on television, and the broadcaster said, the analyst said that DJ was late with the ball. It wasn't that he was late. It's that it was a single high safety. He just had to look the safety off for a split second, and it would have been a easy completion to Hansen. Just a walk-in touchdown, really. And it was a pick. And then the second one, he goes to his second read. That one he goes late, and he got intercepted by the same guy again. So bad picks. He's probably still DJ. You know, he might still be kind of like in spring mode here. Like he missed so much live action that we're probably never going to get to see the same Lagway that we saw last year. But we called that at right off the bat too, Neil. We said after the first game that Billy ain't good enough to help DJ here, and DJ is not good enough to help Lagway, and that pretty much ended up being the story of the season, really, to this point. What happened with Billy now that we're going to talk about here shortly, at least now gives everybody a chance to reset and move forward in this season in the micro and in the macrocosm, move forward as a program, right? Into next year with new leadership. So that's what that caused. And maybe DJ will be a part of it. Maybe he won't. I see a lot of fans on social media being concerned, Neil, about, players leaving and stuff. And listen, players are going to leave. Players are going to stay. That's just the way it is. All right. But a lot of people concerned about DJ. But you got to remember, maybe the coach that comes in, he's going to evaluate every player on this roster and look at a lot of film coming in the door. Okay. And the film that's being put on by DJ, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, Neil. Maybe a coach might not want him to be a part of what he's bringing to Gainesville. So we got to wait and see, man. A lot of wait and sees, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what's moving forward, not only with the program for next year, especially when you're hearing some of the names bandied about, but I'm excited about the remainder of this year, man. With Billy G at the helm, I'm excited to see his game management. He deserves this shot. He wants to stay here in Gainesville. Obviously, I don't think he's a candidate. I think he's a great bridge, however, to the new administration coming in. He could be a great guy to merge from one administration to the other. And when you look at it, remember, Neil, some of the best players on this squad were direct recruits of Billy G. All right, I'm talking about the ones in that wide receiver room. Okay, so if your wide receiver coach is staying, it gives you a couple more checks there on Dallas Wilson, on VB3. VB3 I don't think is a problem. He's too much of a legacy guy. But on a couple of other guys to stick around, especially Dallas. You want a guy like Dallas to stick around. That's a generational type of talent. But other than that, Neil, that's what I got from the game, man. What did you get out of it?
Those are supposed to be your positives.
Yeah, those are positives,
that was supposed to be your positives. And we're running through all the myriad of issues. And all right, let's be real. There were not a lot of positives other than the fact that Florida won the game. The positive is that they survived it. The positive is that Florida managed to escape that game. Because you're my witness, Adrian. I said to you at halftime, or maybe it was like after the first drive of the third quarter, this feels very, very similar to South Florida, where we got the lead, but we're letting them hang around. We're not putting them away. It's going to stay a one-score game until the very, very end, and then we're going to let them score and take the lead and win. And, well, Blake Shapen doesn't throw that ball, then that's probably what happens because they're in field goal range. Their kicker is able to hit from that distance. I think it was going to be, I don't know, let's just give them credit for another 5 or 6 yards or so. Probably going to be a 48, 49-yard field goal?
Mid-40, 40, 42, around there.
Oh, so even closer. So, yeah, it would have been in the mid-40s. That's something that college kickers can hit nowadays, especially in the SEC. So, that was looking like a loss until Mekhi Burrow received that present from Blake Shapen. But, yeah, I mean, like even the positive things about this game come with caveats. Like Alfonso Allen broke out, I thought, with 15 tackles. He also got cooked on a couple of deep balls. Well, I mean, he's not a defensive back. He's a linebacker. But nonetheless, that was his piece of game film that was out there. Now, you can say, well, he's forced to do something he's not ordinarily tasked to do. But nonetheless, that's still him getting baked in coverage like that on 2 different occasions, one of which, thankfully, was wildly overthrown. Florida dodged a bullet there. But Yeah, I mean, Florida was favored in this game by 10, 10 and a half or 9.5, depending on where you got it. I think Dustin's model had it at 9. Our friends at Poly Market had it at 9.5. So this game was projected to be a 2-score Florida victory. But of course, Billy Napier doesn't do that. He doesn't do multi-score wins. So this came down to the final second again. And that's, I think, why I think that's why we're now where we are. For a lack of a better way to put this, Billy Napier is just not a good in-game coach. And we can talk about him as an overall coach, period. But he's especially weak in the in-game coaching department. And that's going to be something that he's going to have to reconcile with if he ever wants to coach another football team ever again beyond the FCS level or beyond the group of 5 level. If he ever wants another Power 4 job again, he's going to have to reconcile with the fact that he just simply flat out sucks at coaching these Saturdays in the college football world. All right, Adrian, as we said, Napier's fired at long last. He's gone. We're going to be picking up the shattered remains of what he left behind for quite some time now. Scott Strickland tried his very best to sell this fan base a load of hogwash when he said that this roster he said that this program is in a lot better shape now than it was the day that Napier came in. And to some extent, that's true. Like in some fashions, that's true. There was a really bad culture issue when Dan Mullen left the program. Mullen outright quit on the program. I do believe Billy Napier at least tried to recruit high quality character guys. I give him credit for that. Beyond that, this program is just a mess right now. 22-23 in Napier's tenure here. 3-12 against the rivals, 0-1 against Arkansas, 1-2 against Kentucky. Like there are so many different little sub records. There's one that we talked about off air before we've been coming on this show and starting to record. Kentucky has not won an SEC football game on its home turf in more than 750 days. The last time they did, against Florida by 3 touchdowns. Like, there's just nowhere to begin any rational defense of Billy Napier. So, with that said, I'll let you take the first stab at this. Give us your eulogy of the Billy Napier tenure as best you can.
The Billy Napier tenure, man. I mean, everybody has opined on it so much already. That first year, the very first year, I remember calling into a radio show here. And my opinion on the radio show was, listen, Billy Napier's success here, and this was like halfway or 3/4 of a way through his first year, is going to be determined on how quick he realizes he needs an offensive coordinator. So anybody could see that. Anybody who watches football, grew up watching football, right? None of us are. I'm not a coach. I never coached football before, but I've seen enough football to know what it should look like. And like what we've talked about, there's so many podcasts now that do film breakdown and stuff like that walk you through stuff like that you can see how incompetent of an offense is run by Billy Napier. So he can never get over that. And a couple of things. When you look at Strickland's presser, right? He says in there, and I thought Strickland did an okay job. I know what you're talking about as far as the line of bull and all that stuff, but I thought he did an okay job, and I'm not no Strickland defender. We all know that. But he goes, when asked about Billy, about if he ever discussed with him, the offensive play calling and all that stuff, he said, we had a lot of conversations related to that. We spent probably hours in conversation. I shared with him that I thought his strengths may be in leading the program and overseeing the bigger picture. At the end of the day, as an athletic director, you hire head coaches, you give them the authority to make decisions on how they want to run their program, and then you hold them accountable to that. And that's probably part of the reason why we're here today. I appreciated that comment from Strickland because it pretty much verified everything that we had thought. And there was another thing that verified everything we had thought also that I'll get to now later. But basically, that offseason conversation between Strickland and Billy was pretty much like, hey, Billy, you could be a good CEO of this program. Get yourself an OC, play caller. Billy's response, no, I'm good. I want to do it myself. Strickland probably said, if you fail, you're fired. Billy said, got it. That's pretty much paraphrasing that conversation that took place. And that's pretty much what happened. So I appreciate that they held him accountable. Now, of course, all the various reportings going around that Strickland had to be dragged to this by the boosters, by one booster or multiple booster meetings, or, who cares? The fact of the matter is that we got to that point where Billy got terminated for this. Okay, Neil, as you said, I've watched more football than you simply because I'm older than you, right? And I've also had more interactions with people simply because I have more time on this earth. But rarely, Neil, rarely, okay, in my time on this planet have I seen somebody a greater example of self-sabotaging themselves than what Billy did, man. Okay? All he had to do was find himself a play caller, an OC, okay, to probably thrive in his position. And how many times did he need a hint to do that? How many times did he go into a post-game presser and have a media member ask him, Billy, are you going to continue calling plays? Are you going to considering having somebody else take over the offense? How many times before you're asked that you could do some self-evaluation and be like, whoa, why do people keep asking me this, right? And then once your boss has this conversation with you during the offseason, I mean, Neil, let me ask you, if your boss comes and tells you, hey, Neil, you need to do this to be able to succeed in this job, because if you don't, I don't think you can move forward in this position. If you depend on that paycheck to put food on your table for you and your family, you're probably going to make that change, make that adjustment that your boss is suggesting. That's what normal people do in the world. But here again comes the little dreaded buyout. I think that buyout right there at the end of the rainbow, that little pot of gold, whether you succeed or fail, right? Which is basically for when you fail, right? Precludes a person like Billy in that situation from making an adjustment to what he's doing, making a change, because he could gamble. Fine, I'll just gamble on myself here. Because you know what? If you fire me and I fail, guess what? I still have that whatever, $40-50 million buyout.
20.
Yeah, 20.
Still
There you
a
go.
lot.
Hey,
Still a lot.
what's a few million among friends? So here's another thing where that buyout thing, which I hope changes, it's going to have to eventually change some. Not for the big name coaches and the big programs. That's going to be later on. But for lesser programs and coaches trying to get a step up, right? They're going to start adjusting that buyout thing. You got to. It's just not sustainable. So then comes the interview with Billy G, the presser of the part with Billy G. And what Billy G said that I found really interesting, man, was the part where he said about Callaway going to continue to be the OC, but O'Hara is going to be the play caller. I found that to be fascinating, man, because that tells me everything we suspected about all these OC titles that Billy has had for the last 3 years. Wasn't Rob Sale like an OC for like one season? Rob Sale OC, Callaway OC, right? All that was hogwash. It was always just to placate the fan base, like treat us like mushrooms, feed us crap, keep us in the dark. This is his show, and he was going to ride this puppy until the end, no matter what. Okay, even if you rode it into the ground. All those guys were nothing but figureheads. Analysis is all that they were. Okay? And this was his gig. Because you're going to tell me now that the guy who was the OC cannot be the play caller now? Right? Obviously, he had no experience doing it. Okay? And we knew that. We knew that that was the case. But it was verified for us, at least in this presser. So now you have O'Hara, who's going to be the play caller, and we'll probably talk about that later. But to finally put a bow on the question that you asked me, right, the Billy Napier era and all that, I find it one that should be a tragic one, right? It should be something that people should look at and learn from. about, going through life, not being able to self-evaluate, make corrections to yourself, to the manner in which you're doing things. Okay? You have to humble yourself sometimes to be able to progress in life. I don't know if hopefully Billy just has that character flaw when it comes to this. Because if he really, because that's a little wicked character flaw, man.
You can't
So
have that the rest of your life.
yeah, so I hope for his sake and the sake of his family that he's able to, take some, retrospect a little bit better and not be so stubbornly hard-headed and not be able to see what everybody else sees, man. Because it cost him this job big time. It cost him this job, and it cost other people's jobs, unfortunately, that probably did their job excellent. But unfortunately, they depend on Billy Napier to be able to succeed in his job. So that's the Billy Napier. It would be a tragedy if not for the fact that obviously he walks out with that huge buyout. So it's not a tragedy for him, just like we spoke about this in the last episode. It's one for all the other people that now have to get up and move because Billy just could not, make the decision to change the way he was operating.
Okay.
Go for it.
Here we go. I mean, Billy Napier is the worst coach in Florida Gators history. It's not close. It's not even close. There's no one in the same galaxy as Billy Napier when it comes to the worst coach in Florida history. The eulogy of Billy Napier's time at Florida has to start and end with what I've been saying since 2023, which is good teams find ways to win games, bad teams find ways to lose games. And you can swap out the word program or swap out the word team for program there, and it would be the same exact thing. Good programs find ways to win and make the CFP and win college football playoff games and eventually win titles. Bad teams find ways to continue falling short of bowl eligibility or just barely scraping by and into the postseason before winning a freaking Pirate Bowl with a plastic treasure chest of a trophy and claiming that that's your crown achievement of your tenure. And Billy Napier found ways to lose more games than he won. That makes him definitionally a loser. And look, I know everyone's entitled to their own opinions. That's fine. If you're going to defend Billy Napier and say he did things the right way, okay, fine. If to you building character and molding young men is more important than winning games on the football field, cool. I don't have a real argument against that. I think that's a matter of personal preference. I'm not going to argue that. You're not entitled to your own facts. Nobody is entitled to make up their own facts. Nobody is entitled to even slightly tweak the existing facts. Nobody is entitled to live in their own reality and subject the rest of us to your warped version of reality's rules. The facts are that this is the worst coach Florida has employed statistically from a wins and losses perspective in 80 years. And when you factor in all the resources that Billy Napier has had at his disposal, not just the army of staffers and probably enough to form a Navy and a freaking Coast Guard as well, but all the recruiting dollars that he had at his disposal. I'm talking NIL and the transfer portal and the private jet that he has to go traveling everywhere to go recruit guys away from Texas and occasionally from other parts of, I guess, the Midwest and the Northeast when he'd go visit kids, even if he didn't land them. The idea is he's always going to be present in those rooms. He has these resources that nobody before, I guess, Spurrier really had the means to have. Nobody before Spurrier was going anywhere close to as many or logging as many travel miles as Billy Napier was. He's the sixth worst coach in history from a strictly wins and losses standpoint, and none of those other five had 1/1,000,000th of the resources that he had at his disposal. So I made this point in the last show, but just to reiterate it, from a pound for pound standpoint, when you talk about this from a what you did with what you had standpoint, Billy Napier is the worst coach in Florida history, and it's not even close. And I know that there are some people on the outside or maybe even just casual fans of Florida who are going to go, oh, come on, you're being hyperbolic, you're prisoner of the moment, recentism. Yeah. No. When you factor in what he had to work with at his disposal, which was exponentially more resources at his disposal, and no World War to deal with, like C.J. McCoy or Alfred Buser in the 1910s or Raymond Wolf in the 1940s, and no Great Depression to deal with, like Josh Cody in the 1930s. A similar record to all those guys, same ballpark record, only marginally better than those guys, in a completely different era of college football that is exponentially more conducive to Florida's success than those other guys. And making it all worse was, again, the key phrase, found ways to lose. Because Napier didn't just find ways to lose. If he couldn't find a way to lose games, he would invent new ways to lose. Like two guys wearing the same jersey on the field at the same time. Like a guy fielding a punt at his own 5-yard line and muffing it for a touchdown against pre-Diego Pavia Vanderbilt. Or a top 5 quarterback or a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, at quarterback, throwing a pick 6 and another pick returned inside your red zone against a Kentucky team that you'd beaten at that point 33 out of the last 34 times, to hand that game away to them and blow a 2-score lead. Not one, but 2 different games where your field goal unit cannot execute the fire drill, triggers an illegal substitution penalty, and you lose by 3 in overtime. Happened against Arkansas in 23 in the Swamp. Happened against Tennessee in 24 on Rocky Top. Not one, but 2 different games where you have the momentum of the game completely flip on its head because you have one of your players spit in another player's face on the other team. South Florida this year, FSU in the Swamp 2 years ago. In that FSU game, when that spit happened, that time from Jamari Lyons, Florida was winning the game by 2 touchdowns. It was 12-0 at that point. They lost 24-15. That 15-yard penalty helped give FSU their first points of the game in a game that Florida would eventually lose. This time against South Florida this year, that penalty came after Florida had stuffed USF's first down play, completely flipping the field, taking USF out of the shadow of its own end zone, giving them life on the drive, which would eventually end in a Negro Grammatica field goal. Or maybe it was surrendering enough yardage to LSU in a single game to form a new continent, setting a new record for the most yards ever given up in a game in school history, with 702 yards in that one game, and just handing the Heisman Trophy over to Jaden Daniels. And then the very next week, giving up a 4th and 17 in the final 30 seconds to lose that game to Missouri. And both of those games, that stretch of games in 23, that comes the year after Florida has the single worst defense in school history in 2022. Or maybe we can talk about the offensive line with 2 offensive line coaches, which costs us a staffer somewhere else, which is the special teams area. That really worked out, by the way, Billy. That to me is just one of the. All right. Anyway, yeah, your offensive line with 2 offensive line coaches, which you swore to us in each of the last 2 off seasons was going to be a strength, with a returning All-American this year and a second returning 5th-year senior at tackle this year, getting bullied in the trenches by teams that have out-recruited you and out-NIL'd you for the last couple of years, such as Miami, such as Texas last year, not this year. This year we ate against them, but Texas, Miami last year, Texas A&M last year, and then really for a finale, Texas A&M this year, where Cassius Howell just eats Austin Barber's lunch for an entire 3 hours. One of the worst situational play calls I've ever seen against FSU in 2023, with that ridiculous double reverse play call that should have been aborted in the film room and never seen the light of day. A film room, it should have been aborted on the whiteboard when Billy was drawing that up. It never should have even made it to a practice, let alone into a single game, where you have to just look at the X's and O's you're drawing with that little marker. And the defensive coaches are going to come take a look. Wait a minute. No, you've got 3 guys getting just free rushes at your quarterback. Why would you think that's a good idea to call that? That's exactly how you're scheming this up, because you have the offensive line shifting to the left to block for Trey Wilson, but your quarterback is going to get killed before he could even get him the ball. All this stuff. The point is, it's just always something. If it's not this, it's that. If it's not that, it's this. If it's not X, it's Y. If it's not A, it's B. If it's not M, it's N. I just don't care anymore. I am exhausted of breaking down the different forms of stupidity that Billy Napier is responsible for. I'm just done. Like, I'm not even, at this point, not even angry anymore, because it is over. But I'm so done and exhausted and just finished with this guy. And Adrian, you dropped that video with Dustin's help with Frank Sinatra's song My Way as the soundtrack. Nice job on that, by the way. When the Disney Gators out there want to go, oh, he's such a nice guy. Remember the human element here because he's a good person. Okay. Well, good people typically don't pocket north of $7 million per year to be the worst and least successful and most damaging person to ever hold a certain job, and then pocket another 20 million just to go away and stop doing that job because they're so catastrophically bad at doing that job, and never once at any point even consider the idea that anybody other than himself might be the most qualified and fitting person to wear just this one hat or these couple of hats here or there that is a fundamentally vital component to his job succeeding, like you pointed out. He was told by the boosters and even his own boss that he needed to hire an offensive coordinator, and he just refused. So you want to talk human element? You want to talk about the person here? Okay, cool. We can do that. How about the more than 85,000 Gator fans who know the abuse is coming and who show up to watch it for 16 games in a row in the Swamp? How about that human element? Does that ever strike anyone's head? Because I don't believe that the Swamp was even sold out for those 16 games for most of them. I think that's a bunch of bull. Probably, I'd say at least 80,000, maybe between 80 and 82 in some of them. We definitely saw some empty seats in the Sunshine sections for Mississippi State. But we'll even go low and call it 80,000, okay? 80,000 Gator fans showing up 16 games in a row to watch this, who give up their own time and effort and money to come see this product, knowing full well that they are supporting the worst regime in program history. So, look, when I see idiots like Tim Brando doing the whole song and dance of blah, 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 human element, blah, 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 you're Gator fans, you're toxic. Shut up. Just shut up. I beat myself. I saved Dustin the trouble of having to go do that. The fact is, there were more than 0 fans decked out in orange and blue. The fact that there was anybody there subjecting themselves to that after the USF game is a testament to the deeply rooted love for this program that is baked into our collective DNA. A truly toxic fan base would have not even shown up at all. So to me, the human element means, look, don't go up to him or his wife or his kids and harass them. Don't go up to them and curse them out. Don't go up to them and yell, you suck in their ear. Don't do that stuff. All right, keep it respectful, but keep it real. The motto of this show. That's being respectful. Be a respectful human being. Don't abuse them in public for it. Because we don't know the guy personally. I mean, even talking about him just being a bad father or a bad husband, even just talking about that, like that has nothing to do with the subject matter at hand. That's not called for. That's just wrong. Like, that's what I mean by keep it respectful. He's not a failure of a husband. He's not a failure of a father. People connecting dots and going, well, if he's this bad at what he gets paid $7 million a year to do, he's probably just as bad as a husband or a father. Like, don't do that. No. Not in favor of that. But guess what? Keeping it real means not sugarcoating this. And I'm not even harping on this to beat a dead horse anymore. This is going to be a theme as we keep talking about Florida rebuilding. Because keeping it real means calling out Billy Napier for the historic, monumental, unprecedented failure of a head football coach that he is. Because we're going to keep talking about next steps, both in this show and then really in the next few shows and then in the offseason whenever we hire our new head coach in his first offseason at Florida. We're going to talk reconstruction and rebuilding. Keep it real means we're not going to whitewash his tenure as it just didn't work out or he didn't win enough. No, that's not even close to capturing the extent of the devastation here, because it didn't work out was a good phrase for Dan Mullen or for Ron Zook or for Jim McElwain. It just didn't work out in the end. Those guys didn't work out. This guy was, bar none, the single worst to ever hold the title that he held until this past weekend. So if you want to talk about high standards, like Billy Gonzalez is talking about even in his introductory presser as the interim guy, you want to talk about shooting high? Not only did Billy Napier sink the Titanic And not only did he personally tow its shattered shards of remnants into a subterranean trench, he then took a drill and burrowed it deep down into the bedrock beneath the ocean floor. And the only reason he didn't reach the Earth's core was because he was paid $20 million to turn off the drill and just float away before he could reach it. So the last point I'll make is we have to remember how to remember this guy's tenure, because we've seen a lot of the talking points floating around now. He's 3-12 against his rivals, never beaten Georgia. All right, he's 0-14 against ranked opponents on the road. We've seen all that. We don't have the right to talk about being on the same playing field as Georgia and Miami and FSU and LSU and Tennessee right now. Forget his losing records against each of those schools. He has sunk Florida so deep beneath those schools' levels. He has a losing record to Kentucky. He has a losing record to Arkansas. He split a pair of nail-biting games against South Florida. He split a pair of games against pre-Diego Pavia Vanderbilt. So again, that's all in front of tens of thousands of fans who sacrifice dozens of hours and thousands of dollars every year just to watch all that unfold. This is a program with 3 national titles in the last 30 years. And not only have we fallen beneath our rivals, we have fallen below teams that in no world should have ever been on the same dimensional plane as Florida. Billy Napier is a combined 3-5 against South Florida, Kentucky, Arkansas, and pre-Diego Pavia Vanderbilt. That is perhaps the single most appalling statistic in the history of Gator football. It's right up there with having 26 yards of offense through 3 quarters against Miami, Ohio in 2010. So, look, that's that. I emptied the clip. I'm done. I'm out of ammo. We're going to bury this. I just ran through all of that for archival purposes so we can go back in time and reference it should the discourse ever dictate it down the road. But that's the eulogy of Billy Napier's time here. There is zero sympathy, not even the slightest quarter of a morsel of it. Because when you pair the raw stats with exactly how those stats were amassed and the $20 million Billy Napier was paid to not make it worse, there is not a damn bit of sympathy attached here. This is not goodbye. This is good riddance. And I'll say this one last time, not to the person, but to the coach. To the coach of football, not the human, to the football coach. It is not goodbye. It is good riddance. And with that, I'm out of ammo. Clip has been emptied.
Yeah. I guess it's safe to say Billy struggled, the last few years,
Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit.
You brought back, because you have a real good memory, a much better memory than I do. You got some would say almost a picturesque memory. But bringing all those things back again, man, brings back a lot of rough memories, man. Kind of wished they could stay buried. But hey, man, we gotta move forward. So hopefully we just move forward from here. And I think Gator Nations do. I mean, Gator Nation, in my opinion, has behaved themselves really, really good the last few years, man. The last 5-10 years, really.
They were booing Billy as he ran off the field. That's not nice. Remember the lady behind us? That's not nice. Everyone's chanting, "Fire, Billy." That's not nice. Stop that.
That's just normal stuff, I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. That has nothing to do with the big fan base, the big picture in general. So I think we're going to be due for a good turnaround, man. I
do too. And look,
I got a lot of high hopes.
I think it starts with the next 5 games with Billy Gonzalez as the interim coach, because I think there's a strong chance that he is going to be retained. We talked about this in the last show too. The retaining and the maintaining the good parts of what Billy Napier built. Not that he gets any credit for Billy Gonzalez, because Billy Gonzalez is also here for Dan Mullen and for Urban Meyer's tenure, but there are some good players on this team. Sure, we can give Napier credit in isolation, in a vacuum, for recruiting some great guys to this program. Miles Graham, DJ Lagway, Jaden Ball was a great eval. It wasn't like he was a 5-star prospect that Georgia and Texas were punching each other for, right? Correct. We're going to give him some credit for Dallas Wilson, for Vernell Brown. I'm good to give him credit for what I think is going to be a good tight end down the road, should he get developed, in Amir Jackson. I'm high on his future at the University of Florida. So there's a lot of stuff here with eligibility remaining, a lot of guys with eligibility remaining that I think can build some stuff for themselves, some momentum, some good game tape, some confidence over these next 5 games, that they can get themselves a real launching pad into year 1, or I guess if you want to call it year 0, if it's going to be a true rebuilding year, but whatever, the first year of a new head coach, if they do the right things these next 5 games. I think there's a real chance.
You also left out the young defensive linemen that have been unbelievable.
Sure.
Pretty much all season. We've had to depend on
Makai Burrow, Joseph
3.
Mbachu. Yeah,
Well,
sure.
Hold it. Burrow's a redshirt freshman, right? Or a true sophomore.
Yep.
But the true freshmen's Mbachu, Jalen Woods.
Yep.
And who else? I think there's another true freshman in there that's played on that defensive line. What's the other big guy? The guy in the another big guy in the middle.
Jeremiah McLeod, you're thinking of?
There you go. Jeremiah McLeod is exactly the one I'm thinking about. Yeah, because he's a true freshman. I mean, these guys have been dependent on pretty much because of injuries that started before the season started. You've had to depend on these guys from day one of this season. So you're talking about the young D lineman. You're talking about that young linebanking core. You know, Ty Jackson is still in the mix. That obviously he hasn't been needed because of the other stud linebackers that are on this team. So a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff on this team. No one has ever besmirched Billy for his evals, for his, recruiting. Yeah, could his recruiting have been top 5 in the nation? Would that have been better? Of course it would have been better. Whatever, A lot of things are going into play with that now, obviously, that some may not have been in Billy's control. But I think no one could complain of the talent that he gathered on this team, okay? Unfortunately, he didn't know what to do with it. And that's the ultimate reason why he's not the coach anymore. Nothing else, really. Nothing else. Everything else was more than passable. Sure, his game day decisions, his game day management was very bad. But I will always say I believe that had a lot to do because his mind was just way too caught up in that playbook, way too caught up in how he's gonna, try and scheme when he gets the ball next time. And when you're thinking about all that's a full-time job. That's why you have an offensive coordinator, okay? Because that's a full-time job. And now you want to do that, be the head coach. Not everybody can do that, man. And he wanted to do that. That's how he envisions himself as a football coach. That's how he envisions himself, as the play caller, the head man, but the play caller, the guy who knows how to scheme you up. And he's far from that, unfortunately.
You said it in the Fear of the Program pod. Billy, do you want to be a head coach or do you want to be an offensive coordinator? Turned out to be the question that he just couldn't answer. Or he did answer to his own detriment. He chose the wrong answer.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So, hey, man, moving on, dude. Moving on, man.
Yep. And look, that was the point for anyone who thinks I may have gone on for a while. That was the point of that verbal rampage. The point of it was to be able to point back to that for in future years where anyone wonders, well, maybe Billy wasn't really that bad. I mean, he did leave us, DJ Lagway fans may say, if Florida gets to the CFP next year and Jaden Baugh has, some kind of, the Orange Bowl game MVP honors that come his way. Oh, well, Billy recruited him. Yeah, I gave him his morsel of credit for that. But the point of going through all that was to remind y'all, Billy Napier did less with more than any coach before him in the history of Gator football. And it's been around for 120 years. So that's that. Let's put a bow on this ugly game. This game itself was a microcosm of Napier's time here. We talked about that in the instant recap show, but just to name a few things, you run the ball down inside the Mississippi State 5-yard line, you're gashing them on the ground, then you pull the ball out and start throwing passes everywhere. 3 incomplete passes later, you kick a field goal. Then there's the 3rd and 1 rollout that I have no idea how to describe it. That is one of the most insane short-circuitings of a human mind that I've ever seen on the sports field or not. That's one of the dumbest play calls I've seen in my entire life, and that is being generous. Then there's the 3rd and 7 QB power like he's Cam Newton, and what we've talked about all year, how the guy is just not fully healthy. for one reason or another, whether it's the shoulder or the leg or whatever, he's not 100% there. So you're going to have him QB draw on 3rd and 7. That's brilliant. Then, of course, the failure to count to 11 properly. The mat. We're going to count to 11 now. We fixed that. Yeah, no, you don't. Second half of his 4th season, because this was game 7, so game 7 of 12, it's the back half. The back half of year 4, and you still can't count to 11. 12 men on the field, pushes back. What should have been a 2-point conversion, which actually could have been quite huge, if not for that Blake Shapen decision to throw the ball right to Mekhi Burrow, because that field goal that they were driving down for would have only tied it and not won the game. That, again, because of a mental short-circuiting in the Florida program. And then, of course, you have some more just head-scratching play calls. You're running the ball 3 straight times on a stacked defensive line for Mississippi State where they put 7, 8, sometimes even 9 guys in the box. Let's run it 3 straight times. And then on 3rd and 1, when you just need 30 inches for a first down to end the game, that's when you pull the ball out and have Lagway roll out with no discernible receiver to throw the ball to, mind you, and he gets crunched.
Well, because
I'm so glad we don't have to break this down anymore.
Part of that was just because of the fact that even when he's tried to be tricky, it's like an exploding cigar always, it blows up in his face. And because he's so predictable too, right? Because even on that 3rd and 1 play, fine, he's trying to be tricky. He's trying to trick the defense, but he goes to his, naked bootleg rollout in which they flood the zone with the 3 levels, and Mississippi State had that blanketed, man. They just, like people have been saying, defenses read our mail. And that's what that was about. So,
but even if you forget that, even if you forget the fact that Mississippi State has it blanketed, even if it's not well defended and there's a guy open, Lagway has not exactly been pinpoint accurate all year. We saw in this game Amir Jackson bobble a ball and barely managed to corral it before he wound up stepping out of bounds. That was a hairy moment for Florida fans too, when he was wide open. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong when you have a quarterback in DJ Lagway and receivers running routes down the field that result in the ball falling down incomplete. And if you do that, you give Mississippi State a free timeout without having to make them burn one. Remember, the point of that was get the first down. This game is done. They cannot stop the clock anymore. If you run it on 3rd and 1, but you fail to get the first down, all right, at least you're going to waste another 40 seconds. Incomplete passes, which are possible even when the defense doesn't read our mail, so to speak, is just an unnecessary risk that does not have to be taken. And that was the point of the play. And then this was the part that made me say, Billy, just shut your mouth. Don't even finish this press conference. Just go away right now. When Napier said in the presser, he did, and we were watching this as you were feeding me your delicious arroz con pollo, which, by the way, is now 2-0 when you feed me that, as opposed to picadillo. We watched that together, and Billy said, yeah, DJ did the right thing there and just took the sack to keep the clock running. You bozo, the point of I can't even do this anymore. I cannot tell you guys how thrilled I am to be done with Billy Napier. But, dude, yeah, he did the right thing to bail you out of an idiotic play call. He took the sack to limit the damage instead of throwing a forced ball that either gets deflected or worse, picked off. He gets himself killed. He puts himself in harm's way. Again, by the way, not a fully healthy body right there. So let's just take a free shot at him with no one protecting him. That's another great idea, Billy. Like, dude, every time you think about these things, it just gets dumber and dumber and dumber, where there's more stuff you can pick apart. Why he did, I don't know. Look, it's over. I'm hopeful that Ryan O'Hara can call situational football better than Billy Napier did. That does not put our quarterback in the line of fire. But look, we're going to move forward and talk about these next 5 games soon. We do have a bye week coming up. We got some content for you then, but let's put a bow on this blunderful game by Florida with our final word. So play of the game, player of the game, and then our grades. So play of the game to you, Adrian, is what?
Play of the game. I always try and look out of the box here, but nah, I'm going with the obvious one. Obviously, the game winner, the Makai Burrow one. Great play on his part. Great call by Rob Roberts. First of all,
Mhm.
you know, they were really shredding us right there. They pretty much just had to run it once or twice more, and that's it. Kick an easy field goal. For some reason, they decided to keep passing. It looks like Levy wanted to go for the jugular there, and he went for the slant. Um, Roberts has started calling his creeper defense just to try and change it up there for him because they were getting shredded with the secondary that we hadn't talked about, but the entire secondary was basically just freshmen. So he had to play too deep just to protect them. So he goes creeper. He drops back Burrow. Makai makes an amazing play, really, because not only does he drop back into the throwing lane, but he comes from the other side of the play too. So he's coming across the play, and then he makes a athletic move to make the catch, and he looked like a tight end. He probably played a little tight end in high school, I'm sure, before he probably put on some more weight. So showed some soft hands, man. Made the catch. If he just deflects it, you're like, oh man, great play, but those are the types of big plays that sometimes your defense has to make. That this defense hasn't made those huge, big game changer type of plays. They've been playing bending, don't break type of defense, solid defense, especially with all the depth that they've had to go into. But this defense this year hasn't made those just game winning, monster plays except for that one. And he
Well,
made it.
Texas, but yes.
Yeah. Which one in Texas? Refresh
Well,
my memory.
again,
I
we
forget.
had back-to-back sacks.
Okay, yeah, sacks. Okay, but
But
it's usually picks, like the big
yeah,
interceptions, the big like pick six that you drop or something.
yeah,
But yeah, Makai Burrow's play, man, just
yeah.
unbelievable play, game winner. Player of the game, even though you mentioned him in a little bit of a negative light earlier, in the grand scheme of things, man, what Alfonso Allen did, Alfonso Allen Jr., I mean, 15 total tackles, 8 solos. He basically played for Castell. And yeah, his probably why he's a walk-on. Is he on scholarship now? He probably
Yeah.
was a walk-on, is on scholarship now, is because probably his coverage skills are not, all there. Probably because he's probably not as great an athlete as, a D1 safety right now. But what he did in this game shows you what you just wish maybe Castell does, right? He played downhill. Okay? When his job was to run fit, he came downhill and came with some bad intentions. He for coming into that game, listen, it's amazing that Mississippi State didn't put up 30 plus points. When I saw it was the first drive, Neil. The first drive, they lose Denson and Moore. Okay? Within about 3 or 4 plays, they lose both of those guys. You were already out Castell, which might have been a, addition by subtraction type of thing. I'm sorry.
Keep it
And then
respectful, but keep it real.
keeping it real. And then also Cormani was a game time decision, and he couldn't play. So hopefully he'll be back for sure. Hopefully, all these other guys, you don't know the extent of their injuries. It looked like a lot was shoulder and collarbones, and those are always a pain in the butt, man. Especially the collarbone. It looked like more was a collarbone thing. So we'll see, man. But for the defense to not have given up 30 plus, mind you, Mississippi State helped there, okay? We've had the luck of missing wide open receivers 50-yard downfield this year, all right? So we had a little bit of luck there, but still, hats off to him. And to the guy that I thought most deserves it, Alfonso Allen. Grades, offense, I'm going to
He's
C.
doing them all at once, huh?
Yeah, let's go, man.
Go for it.
Offense,
Go
I'm
for it.
going I'm going to C. 23 points. They had a ton of yards, Neil. How many yards did they have? I had
468 yards.
468 yards, 280 passing, Bog running all over the place. We should have put up 30 plus points ourselves, easily. And we had to scratch and claw and hit some 50-yarders just to get 23. So, again, Billy Napier experience right there. So, offense, I gave him a C. Left a lot of meat on that bone, like we like to say. defense, I'm going B plus, man. I'm going B plus for a lot of stuff that we talked about. That Mississippi State should have shredded us for more, man. Let's be honest. Yeah, that's 0. The kid 0 on Mississippi State had himself a field day, but to keep them under or at just 21 points, I thought was unbelievable. Special teams, smack alone, man, gets 53 and a 54-yarder. I give him a B plus. Coaching, listen, this is like in a grade school where you're giving them the kid the grade just to go up to the next grade. You know, that's kind of what this is for coaching. I'm giving Billy a B just to get him graduated to the next grade.
Just to get him out of here.
Yeah, have him move on to the next grade. So I'm giving him a solid B. Good job, and he's somebody else's problem.
Holy hell.
Overall, it's an A plus. I mean, you won the game, and you got rid of Billy Napier. So that's an A plus day for me overall, man. Slam dunk.
All right. My grade is going to be very different from yours. But first, the play of the game, it's got to be Mekhi Burroughs' pick. You broke down from Florida's standpoint. I will add, go back and watch the play again and watch it 10 more times to watch every other Florida Gator defensive player on that field react when Mekhi Burroughs picks off that ball. They're all, whoa! Their arms just like almost are shot up out of their sockets in celebration. So that's that. I don't know what Blake Shapen thought he saw there. I don't know.
He didn't see nothing. Yeah, he didn't see anything.
How you missed that? Yeah, Mekhi Burroughs there's a lot of muscle there.
He thought that was a wide open slant, Neil. Mekhi dropped, first of all, from this side of the line. Shapen is looking right over here, and he thinks that's a wide open slant.
How do you not see that? You're taught to use your peripherals.
That's what the creeper's all about. That's what the creeper defense is all about.
I get it. And look, it was a great call by Roberts. He does use some variation of the creeper quite often, but Blake Shapen also knows that because that's what you do in the film room all week in preparation for the game. You know that's coming. You've got to at least sort of sense it. Like take a half a second to just look again. And then if it's still open, it's still open. But you cannot lose the game with a turnover there, dude. Like it's better. It's much better for you to just not see an open receiver and just tuck it and run for 5 yards. Then see the open receiver, but then not see the guy sneaking in on the creeper concept. So I don't know what he thought he saw. Obviously, you said he saw an open man. I don't know how or why you justify that. I'd love to see the angle that he got from the all-22 to maybe sort of justify it. But that, from our vantage point, sitting in Section 1, was absolutely insane. So that's that. Player of the game. I had a lot of difficulty thinking about this one. And the low-hanging fruit is to give it to Mekhi Burroughs for obviously winning the game. Then there's Alfonso Allen, like we talked about, with 15 tackles. Certainly gets some praise there. I'm going to go Cameron James. He had 5 solo tackles, also a sack and a half on the day. I cannot in good conscience give it to anyone on the Florida offense, but if I had to, I would say Vernell Brown, before he got hurt, racked up 5 catches for 95 yards. So pretty good day for him. Obviously, it ended terribly with the injury, but it was a pretty strong showing for him until the injury. And then you have to go give some consideration to Jaden Baugh. There's some love to be given to the offensive line, but Jaden Baugh, as we've been clamoring for, run the damn ball. Well, we did 23 times, solid 150 yards on the ground. I will never understand why Napier did not continue that drive where Baugh got them inside the 5-yard line and then threw 3 straight passes. Got to let the guy who gets you down there get you in, but whatever. All right, the grades. Here we go. Offense. They'll get a C. You leave a lot of meat on the bone, like you talk about. It's a passing grade. It's not a failure of a performance, but, I mean, settling for 3 field goals against a team like this is definitely not ideal. You've got to score touchdowns. And some of that, again, was the play calling. But you get to the red zone, you got to punch those in and cash those in for 7. Defense, they're going to get an F. It's not going to be that F because they did win the game. This is like one of those Fs where the professor goes, all right, I see what you're doing and what you're thinking here. And yeah, you answered that one question really well. That's a good single answer. But this is overall a failure of a performance. This is like a, I don't know, 55 or a 60 out of 100. Mekhi Burrow, obviously with the pick, I put that more as a negative on Shapen than I do a positive on Florida's defense. But then, like you said, Mekhi Burrow could have dropped the ball. He didn't. He caught it. Gators did win the game because of it. So that's why it's not a complete failure. But you're talking about a team here that's injured, that doesn't have a lot of their starting guys on the offensive line, and even sometimes in the skill position, or even a few places in the skill position, and you give up 468 yards.
Did you see who we were playing in the secondary, man? It was all freshmen.
Sure. I did.
That's rough. That's a rough grade right there, bro. That's a rough
468 yards.
You had Javari Flowers and you had Ben Hanks, two true freshmen playing corners against this Mississippi State team.
468 yards against a team that does not recruit from the same talent pool as you do. It's one thing if it's Georgia or even Texas. Well, Texas, I guess, not really good offensive this year. It's one thing if that's Georgia or Alabama or Ole Miss. Like, you give up 468 to Ole Miss, all right, fine. Great offensive coach. They got playmakers there. They're all healthy. Whatever. Live with that. Mississippi State does not recruit anywhere close to the talent that you do.
That kid Zero is a good player, man. He was, I believe he's Oklahoma, portaled in, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Good player. A lot of speed.
468 yards.
21 points.
Should have lost the game. The defense played bad enough to lose. They also missed some throws, too. We sat there in section one and we watched. We looked at each other and go, oh, that was a gift. They Shapen missed a couple of open receivers. 468 yards as it is. That's abominable against Mississippi State. So, yeah. Look, there's a reason they haven't won an SEC game under Jeff Lebby. We're nearing the point in time where you turn the page, flip the calendar to November of 2025, and Jeff Lebby has still not beaten an SEC team there. So, no, I'm sorry. That's an F of a grade.
Oh, by the way, they started Grimsley at one of the corner spots, and he got cooked immediately, and they took him out, and then they replaced him eventually with combination of Hanks and with Javari. Then once Moore got injured, then it was Hanks and Javari Flowers for the most part. So that was rough, man. But at least they made the quick change with Grimsley, because Grimsley was getting cooked hard, man. He was.
Yeah, I mean, everybody got cooked. I get the injuries thing. I get it. But again, 468 yards, dude. Like there's no justification for that. I'm sorry. They should not. Had it been entirely Florida's second string, there's no excuse for giving up that number of yards to Mississippi State. There's just not. We have so much more talent than them in the trenches. We have to outweigh them pound for pound at the line of scrimmage by a solid 20 pounds a player, if not more. Also, a returning All-American on the offensive side of the ball, which we're going to talk about momentarily, or which we did talk about momentarily. And they got a C as opposed to an A. So, all right, that's that. Special teams, I'm going to be actually more positive than you. I'm going to give them an A- because Trace Mack faces all this adversity with the kicks getting moved back, doesn't phase him, hits all his field goals, including 2 long ones, like you said. Tommy Doman, 4 punts, an average of more than 40 yards per punt, including 1 inside the 20. That's great. You like to see that. No calamities like kicking off out of, or actually there was 1 kickoff out of bounds, but nothing really terrible like snapping the ball over the punter's head. No punts blocked, no field goals blocked, no disasters. So even though they couldn't count to 11, I put that on the coaching more because at this point, it is what it is. Coaching, yeah, they're going to get an F. They're going to get that F. That dude, the play calling, I can't elucidate how thrilled I am that I never have to break down Billy Napier's play calling ever again. We hit on all the points. I don't have to go back and touch them. Go back and replay the show. I'm done, man. I'm so just thoroughly done with talking about Billy Napier as an in-game coach. And I'm excited to see exactly how much of the coaching letdowns were his fault versus his assistants, because now his assistants are going to not have his handcuffs all around their wrists anymore. So that'll be exciting to see. Adrian, we disagreed on who was going to win this game. I said Mississippi State would win. They almost did, but you were ultimately correct. I was not. We also disagree very strongly in our grades in wrapping up this game. So I'll let you have the final word. What else?
You forgot overall. Your overall grade.
Overall, 62 out of 100. It's a failure. You shouldn't. Dude, you're favored by 2 scores. You're favored by 10. Favored by 9.5. Only because their quarterback makes a terrible decision do you survive. No, that's a failure of a grade. Go look at the 247 Sports Talent Composite between Florida and Mississippi State. I'll give you a hint. It's not close. On your home field.
I was much easier. I was a much easier grader this time, I got to say.
Well, tell me, Adrian, do your grades change at all if Florida is playing Georgia?
Oh, yeah, they're probably going to all be bad grades because they were going to smoke by Georgia.
No. I'm saying if the game film is identical to what we saw play out against Mississippi State, are your grades any better than they were?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean,
you don't factor in opponents.
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, but these grades are more of a feel-good type of grades. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I'm just joking. These are more of a feel-good type of grades. Just they got the win.
We can joke now. We can joke now. It's over. Napier's done. Just to accentuate the one final point, 247 Sports Talent Composite, Florida is number 12. Mississippi State is number 24. There is a vast difference in talent. So that's that. Billy Napier's gone. He's done. We'll talk moving forward. We'll talk about moving forward in the shows coming up. We got some bye week content for y'all. But Adrian, any final thoughts? Any parting words for the Billy Napier era or this game before we bury them both for good?
Just very interested now in what this is going to look like moving forward, right? O'Hara, just so you know, has been with Billy for 8 years now, okay? 4 years here, 4 years at Louisiana. He was OC, probably the play caller at Alabama A&M before that for about a couple of years. They didn't do good. The whole staff got terminated, and Billy picked them up for Louisiana. So that's O'Hara's background. Billy G tabbing O'Hara as the play caller. Very interesting, man. Makes me wonder. I mean, did Billy G and O'Hara talk, when they're having lunch in the break room and, kick it around and be like, damn, man, we got all these guys, all this weaponry, and we're doing this, we're doing that, we're wasting it. Did they have conversations like that? Who knows? Maybe, right? So we'll see. I mean, the offense is going to be the offense, I would imagine. I don't think they're going to do nothing incredibly drastic. But as far as the philosophy on how to approach a game, right, what plays to call and stuff like that, I'm really looking forward to that. Just really looking forward to seeing what this looks like now that the handcuffs of Billy Napier are not there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense is going to be slightly, but not drastically different. I think we will see it open up a little bit more, a little bit less predictability with the play calls. We'll have to see what Billy G comes up with during the bye week. All right, y'all, that's our show. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed watching or listening, I know this was painful, but it's going to get more fun, we promise, moving forward. Please like, subscribe, leave your thoughts in a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star rating and a nice review on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff helps us bring you more great Gators content. Until next time, Neil Shulman from the All Kinds of Weather Forecast, Adrian Perez. We're done with Billy Napier, and that feels damn good. So until next time, we're leaving the Billy Napier era behind, and we are officially beginning the post-Billy Napier era right now. Go Gators in all kinds of weather. We'll see you next time.